see the beauty anymore. It had closed, and all I saw was an ordinary piece of bamboo. It was such a profound experience for me that I contemplated it for a long time. Later on, when I became a monk, I started to see such beauty in the ordinary things many more times. Sometimes my mind got so still that mindfulness grew so strong that I looked even a piece of concrete and became the most wonderful, beautiful piece of concrete I'd ever seen in the whole world. Now I know what's happening. When the mindfulness is weak, whatever you see is dull and boring. Just like a clump of bamboo or like ordinary food. When the mindfulness starts to grow, you see much more of what you're experiencing. Things fill out, colors become richer, tastes become more blown, full-blown taste. You feel more, you see more, you hear more, you know more. It's what I now call superpower mindfulness. Not ordinary mindfulness, but superpower mindfulness. I've read in the magazines that nowadays that people are making all these movies about the superheroes. They got Batman, they got Superman. I saw in the in-flight magazine they got Catwoman now. It's only a matter of time before they have the ultimate superhero, Super Monk. Super Monk, who's so wise, who's got the X-ray vision of superpower mindfulness, who can read people's minds, who can levitate through the air, who can save people, not with the power of violence, but with wisdom. Anyone who wants to make a lot of money, I can share the franchise. Super Monk, flies again. It'd be great, wouldn't it? Because not only, this is actually a serious proposition. If you get like Super Monk, that it's not just one of these ordinary sort of superheroes you see in Hollywood who's always beating people up and fighting. Because the end, after having saved the world from the evil Dr. Mara, or whoever you should call it, anti-hero, then he teaches a nice Dhamma lesson. So our kids see a nice movie, and at the end, they hear some Dhamma. So it'd be wonderful to have Super Monk as the next superhero. But it's true, you get superpower mindfulness. What you see much more deeply. And this is where you start to understand yourself and understand others. When your mindfulness starts to grow, and you experience this, when you get still, you become more awake. It's like turning up the lights in your mind. If we turn the lights down in this room, you just see shapes. You wouldn't really realize who was who. When you turn the lights up, you can actually see more clearly. When you really turn the lights up, you can see all the pimples on the beautiful girls. And you can see that some of the beautiful men have got false teeth. When you turn the lights up even more, you can see who's shaved and who hasn't shaved. I'm talking about the girls as well as the boys. Because superpower mindfulness actually sees the truth of things. It's turning up the lights, the bright lights. Which is why you become wise with superpower mindfulness. You see things as they truly are. But sometimes you've got to be careful, because sometimes people don't like to see the truth. They like to live in dark places, like nightclubs. Why is it that young men and women, or middle-aged men and women, like to have a romantic evening in a candlelit restaurant, or walk by the river under the moonlight? Oh, isn't that romantic? Why is it in dance halls and nightclubs it's always dark? You know why? Because in that dim light, where you can hardly see anything, you just can't see your girlfriend's pimples. You can't see the grey in his hair because it's very dim, and because you fantasize that your partner on the opposite end of the table Oh, it's so dim you can actually fantasize that he's a superstar from Hollywood. She is like one of these girls you see on the magazines. Have you ever looked at those glossy magazines? Have you ever seen anyone like that in real life? They don't exist. That's all done by light, and touch-up. Digital enhancement. So, such people don't exist, but we want them to exist. Because we want them to exist, we change our mindfulness. We don't see what's truly there, we see what we want to see. That's called wishful thinking or denial. When we have superpower mindfulness, we see things as they truly are. That way, we can accept life and be with life. Not only do you actually see your body and see what you're doing to it, so much sickness comes because we don't look to see what we're doing to our body. There was this man who was 100 years of age in New York, and he was interviewed by the newspaper, and they said, well, now you're 100 years. Have you got any advice to people? He said, yes, I've got this advice. Now I'm 100. If only I knew I was going to live that long, I would have taken much better care of myself. Because when you get old, you have to live with all the aches and pains of not looking after yourself when you were young. So, look after yourself. Be caring and careful. And then when you're mindful, you don't tend to get so ill and sick. Okay? Because you're mindful, you see what you're doing. If you're tired, you take a rest. If you've got a cold, you take some more fruit or something. But when you don't know what you're doing, sometimes the only time you notice you're ill is when it's a bit too late. So mindfulness means you become much more healthy. Not only that, but you become much more sensitive to even the people you deal with in business. You know, one of the troubles in business, sometimes you can't trust anybody. How can you know whether that person is going to pay you after you deliver the goods? How can you know that the goods you're buying is what they say they are? When you've got superpower mindfulness, it's not psychic powers, you're so alert, you pick up signs which other people don't pick up. You know, when you lie, sometimes the eyes move very rapidly. If you've got mindfulness, you can pick that up straight away. That guy is not telling the truth. If you smile naturally, it's very different than a forced smile. So, if your husband comes late home from work and he says, oh, lovely to see you, dear, you can tell whether he's telling the truth or whether he's not telling the truth. You can become more alert and more aware. You know what's going on, for goodness sake. You don't need to hire a detective. Superpower mindfulness is your detective. And you become much more successful in life. You're more alert, more aware. You see much more. And if you want to find out the truths of existence, if you want to find out the religious truths, and find out who's right and who's wrong, is it the Christians? Is it the Buddhists? Is it the Hindus? Which one has got the right truth? You need to have superpower mindfulness first of all. To have that bright mind which sees deeper and further than other people do. So you can find out for yourself. I know that some people, especially in places like Australia, they come to my Buddhist temple. They also go to church. And they also go to the mosque and the Hindu temple as well. It's called Just In Case. But don't be seen like that. You waste too much time. You can find out for yourself by developing mindfulness, which is so strong. You can find out what's true and what's false. You can turn up the lights. And you can know who's telling the truth and who isn't. You can be alert, be awake. So what that does, that empowers you with wisdom. You see deeper and further than the ordinary person. And if you want to find out the deeper truths, you can get such powerful mindfulness. When you have really powerful mindfulness, so you can look at this floor and it becomes the most beautiful pattern you've ever seen in your life, then you can do some interesting things. If you've empowered your mind to that degree of stillness and intensity, you can do such things as say, what is my earliest memory? I've had great success in this, because when your mind is still and powerful like that, you say, what's my earliest memory? And after a second or two, a vision appears in your mind of a time long, long ago. I have to be careful here, because I'm not allowed, according to my monastic rules, to talk about the deeper experiences which I've had as a monk. Things like past lives or other supernatural phenomena, I have to keep quiet. But if you want to know, there is a trick of finding out. I can tell other monks, but I can't tell you. So you ask my other monks, the friends, hey, what has Ajahn Brahm done? That's how you find out. But what I can say is one of the first times I did this, because it's not a past life, it's just close. One of the first times I did this, I was really nice, powerful mindfulness. Your mind is very bright and energetic and still. You look at things, you look at a flower, and my goodness, that's so beautiful. The yellows are just so rich, as if they've all been polished, as if they're iridescent yellow. That's what it feels like to have superpower mindfulness. Whatever you see, whatever you taste, is so rich. So I asked myself, what is my earliest memory? And straight away, within a few seconds, I had a smell in my nose. It wasn't a smell of the hall in which I was sitting. It was a strange smell, but I recognized it immediately. It was the smell of my baby's pram. And with that smell and that recognition, I had my eyes closed, I was in meditation, I was back as a baby in a pram, reliving the experience. And then, as the smell was recognized as my baby's pram, you could actually visualize your pram. Now, I hadn't been in that pram for about 30 years, but now I could see it so clearly. I knew its smell, and I could even see my favorite toy as a baby, which was a little blue plastic toy called Porky. It was a little pig which rattled, and my mother would delight me just walking the toy and rattling it again and again. I had all my baby memories back very, very clearly. This is actually what happens when you have superpower mindfulness. You can go back to your early life. You can go back to the time you were born and know what it's like coming out of your mother's womb. You can actually see what it's like in the mother's womb. And you can even go back further to your previous lives. When your mind is that powerful with superpower mindfulness, that's what you can do. And it's not that difficult. And it's fascinating. There's one Malaysian girl who lives in Perth who had this, she did this on one of my retreats. She started to get some good meditation. The mindfulness was getting very, very powerful. So, she started seeing the grass outside start to fluoresce. It was just so bright and beautiful. So I asked her, okay, you're ready to do, what's your earliest memory? And what she got straight away was, again as a baby, in her mother's arms, being cradled. She felt her mother there being cradled. But then she looked up at her mother, and she was shocked, because the woman who was cradling her was not her mother. Saw it very clearly. She thought, what has my mother not told me? She thought she must have been adopted. Because people do that, they adopt children and they don't tell them. And there she got this old memory when she was just newly born, being cradled by someone who she couldn't recognize at all. So she told me in the interview time, And she couldn't wait to get back home and confront her mum. And she did that. When the retreat was finished, she went to see her mother and said, "Mother, are you really my mum?" And her mother was shocked. "What do you mean? Of course I'm your mum. Now tell me the truth. Am I adopted?" And her mother said, "What are you talking about?" And she told the experience. In her meditation, she developed superpower mindfulness, and she remembered a time when she was a baby, looking up into the eyes of someone who was not her mother. So her mother said, "Describe that woman." And she described this woman in perfect detail, because when you have the superpower mindfulness, your memory is so sharp, it's so good. It's like, if any of you have had a car accident, you also get superpower mindfulness out of fear. The memory burns itself into your mind. You can't forget it. That's actually similar, but this is like beautiful superpower mindfulness, only pleasant. And so she could remember that image very easily. And so she asked her mum, or she told her mum what this woman looked like. And as soon as she described it, her mother was very impressed. "How did you know that?" "That was your amma, your nurse. She came from a rich family in Kuala Lumpur. When she was born, her mother, who was a socialite, hired a nurse for her. Only for the first few months. And she remembered perfectly and could describe it to her mother's satisfaction. Yeah, that was your nurse." It was one of those beautiful cases where it showed that memory of many, many years ago was perfect in all its detail, enough to convince your mother, yeah, that was a nurse you'd only had in the first few months of your life. Superpower mindfulness can do that, and it can get you back into your past life. And then you will know for yourself that you haven't just lived one life. You know as a fact you've been born before. And it's not out of faith. It's not because you believe in books. It's not because you believe Ajahn Brahm or anybody else. It's because you know it for yourself. And it's too many people actually just doubt reincarnation these days. And that actually shows you which religions are telling the truth and which ones aren't. And you can find it out for yourself. And it's very important too. It has consequences. If you know you're going to be reborn again because you were born before, this is not your first life, so it means this is not going to be your last life, then you better start behaving. You better start putting some money in the donation box. That's called your insurance policy. It's like when you got a car, you've got insurance, haven't you? In case the car gets stolen. If you've got a really good insurance policy and you've kept up the premiums, if your car gets stolen or it crashes, you can get a payout so you can get an even better car in the future. So if you've done lots of good karma in this life, when your body dies, you can get a much better model next time. But if you haven't done good karma, if you haven't done charity, and you haven't kept your precepts, it's like not paying your insurance premium. When this car, your body dies, the next time you probably only get a bicycle. But you know that is true because it's your own experience in meditation. This is what superpower mindfulness can do. And superpower mindfulness can go even deeper and find out the nature of your mind. Your awareness is so bright. You can see more deeply into things. It's not just seeing the beauty in a flower, but it's seeing what happens in your mind. It's like you brighten up the headlights and you can see everything which you think you are. What this being is which you take to be you. That's why that mindfulness, when it's enhanced with the power of meditation, with the power of stillness, with the power which you develop in a meditation retreat like this, brings you immense insight. When you know what superpower mindfulness is, you understand that with ordinary mindfulness, everyday mindfulness, Trying to find the truth is trying to like dig a hole with a spoon, with a teaspoon. Superpower mindfulness is like having one of these big excavators